I've been hearing about the Quarry Project. It sounds to me like it's a boys' camp, but it also sounds like there's a bit more to it than that.
Right.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, the Quarry Project is a 1-week intensive camp that you and your son come to, and it kicks off a multi-year discipleship program that you take him through from, middle school and high school years.
So it sounds to me like this is a little bit unique in that usually when you think about boys' experiences or camps and stuff like that, the dad is not typically included. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I kind of go into the backstory a little bit. So we used to do, I was a hunting fishing guide since right out of high school. I grew up in the industry in Alaska. My family who started a lodge in the 60s. And we would always do ministry trips on the side between the hunts and the fishing and whatever. We'd have men come up and sort of do back to nature Alaska trips. And a lot of those guys would come up, 30, 40 years old, and they would have a great 1-week mountaintop experience, but they kind of go back to real world, and they would always seem to fall back into their patterns. And you just didn't see a lot of lasting change. So I'm on the banks of Lake Clark, which is where our lodge was, and really struggling with the Lord on my desire to see men change and bring back godly masculinity to America and our world. And how does that work? And it just didn't seem to be sticking with the men we've been doing it with. And God just spoke very clearly to me that we need to start younger. So that was a new concept for me, starting with boys. So we basically wrote the business plan to actually do just a boys camp. Send your boys to us. But when we started to do interviews with parents, we realized that the dads really wanted to be involved. They wanted to learn how to do these things with their sons, like fly fish and build fires and back up trailers and all the things they didn't probably learn when they were a kid. And so the more interviews and the more kind of customer data we pulled, we realized dads need help discipling their sons. They need to be equipped to disciple their sons. And so that kind of led us to the curriculum. If you want to jump on that, like we're not curriculum writers, right? We're going to keeping people alive in Alaska.
Which I want to come back to that and talk about that a little bit in the backstory behind it.
Yeah. Right. And so, for, that's kind of how we differ from a camp is so heavily focused on that 1 week where we're really just kind of paving the way as a launching pad for really the work happens at home with dad and son in this curriculum that we were introduced to called The Primal Path, which John Tyson wrote. He's the author of Intentional Father and is a pastor of the Church of the City up in New York City. And we stumbled across some of his content on a podcast and started doing a deeper dive into it, read the book, got really fired up about the language, and then realized, oh my gosh, he's put out a very robust, very professional, intentional discipleship program. And from the get-go, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Really our motto from the beginning too was, hey, we don't want to be another ministry, we want to join the movement. And so, hey, if the movement's if there's already favor, if there's already somebody doing this really well, let's jump on board and partner with somebody who's doing this well. And so John was doing this really, really well. And so through a series of events, one of my buddies connected us with a guy that was working with John. And before we knew it, we were up in New York meeting with John and pitching him what we were doing. And then that's kind of how we found ourselves in this niche of kickstarting the Primal Path in a very intentional, fun, really unique way in Alaska.
Yeah, so that's cool. So what is your what's your dream for this? This is a new endeavor. I know that you've done some tests and it was pretty amazing. And what's the big picture here?
Our goal in the next 3 to 5 years is just kind of nail this down. We can. One thing I was going to mention ties into this is that you can't come alone to this camp. You can't just be like, hey son, you and I are going up to this camp or this experience. You have to come with at least one other dad. Because the whole premise of this thing, and this is kind of the long-term view, is that we want to change the trajectory of the family legacy for good. We want to raise boys. We want to help the dads come alongside with John Tyson, with this network, to help dads build boys that can lead their churches, their community, and this country. Define what godly masculinity is based off the Bible. What is it? Who are these people? That's when we go through these character studies. I'm taking my son through right now the Primal Path, and we're like 3 months into Joseph. Joseph was, I'm getting more out of this study than my son. This guy, he can endure because he has faith. Yeah. So what does that mean? What's passivity? What's toxic masculinity? We really want to help the dads navigate this landmine of a world that is really emasculating all men, especially young boys. Addiction to porn, addiction to screens, sports, all these things. Like sports is not evil in itself, but what's an intentional path for your son? Yeah. And you can't do that alone. So that's why we say you have to come up with at least one other dad. We'd love for groups of 8, like small groups come up with their sons. And the sons can range from anywhere from 11 to like 16, 17. And we you can bring 2 sons. We have several guys this next year that are bringing, 16-year-old and 12-year-old. And we have a way to, make sure that the 16-year-old's engaged because there'll be other boys there. So we have a plan for that. But the long-term vision is to create a place, sort of a boot camp to start these men, form a bond. Going to Alaska with other men is in doing the elements, the elements and the hiking and all the things. It's like war in a good way, right? You're steaming together. You're doing things you wouldn't do in your normal life. When you come back here, you have a mission. So here, I'm gonna get on my high horse here. Men, Christian men. Here's my problem with Christian ministry, men's ministry, is that the focus is on being a better man, a better Christian man. I've got to stop.
Don't sin.
Don't sin. Stop looking at pornography and stop flirting with your secretary and help out, vacuum the house. Whatever. The problem is that if men don't have a mission, like David's a perfect example. David sleeps with Bathsheba because he's not out killing and advancing the kingdom. He's literally not advancing his kingdom. He's at home delegating out and he's dicking around, looking at women on the rooftop. And that's who we are. That is men. So and that's what I see the problem with most Christian men now is, we don't have a mission. That's why we're so addicted to work. Because at work, it's clear. It's like there's a goal and there's an end goal. But when it comes to family, we have no mission. We don't know what the end goal is. We're just trying to we delegate, our responsibilities is for our children to church because, and they entertain them. But it's like, what is an intentional father? What is the goal for your family? Multi-generationally. How do you equip your son to be a badass? Like legit. That is godly masculinity. That's like advancing the kingdom of God forcefully. How do you do that? I don't know how to do that. And I'd say I'm pretty intentional. But if you look out there is a path. And that's what we want to get these dads to do, to go on, start on. And you have to do it with other men. So in battle, you don't fight alone. You fight with other men. But you have a mission in battle. The mission when we send these dads home with their sons is like we're raising godly masculine men that are going to one day lead our family. They're going to lead our family. They're going to become the patriarchs one day of their community, their church, our family. And how do we equip the dads to do that? So that's the long-term vision. I think that's probably enough.
Yeah, it's grabbing dad by the shoulders and saying, hey, we don't want to just raise, polite, good, obedient boys. We want to raise wholehearted, comprehensive, fully alive men who, will alter the family legacy that you may actually not even get to see. But they're going to raise families, invest in their sons this way because you started this. So really, trying to get a way bigger vision than just going home and being a better man.
And to tag on what you said earlier, there's people already doing this. John's already kind of started this. He hasn't started this movement, but he's kind of the voice for it. So we've tagged along on what are we good at? We're good at keeping people alive in Alaska and starting any kind of mission or any type of goal and doing a kickoff is just you kind of get on the same page. You have this experience that's unique. And then it's like supercharged. You form a deeper community with these other men. And something else I'll say is that you want other men around your son as he grows up. Because when he screws up one day and it's midnight and he doesn't want to call you because you're going to get his butt chewed, he's going to call your buddy. And your buddy, you're walking alongside, and that's the community aspect of this whole thing. You have to have other men speaking in your son's life. And when you go to Alaska, they will become close to those men because they will rely on them to survive.
So one of the big issues, I have 3 boys. You have a son. Your first child is on the way. And one of the big things I think that, from my experience, that we're really running into is parents, these days, it seems like we're so focused on shielding and protecting our children, from any sort of discomfort, from any sort of failure. Everybody gets participation trophies. Everybody, and this idea that there is, there are forces working against us, and we need to train our children up to be prepared for that. Tell me a little bit. How do you address that in this experience?
It's neat because as we're designing this thing, John's curriculum speaks to this what he calls a shift from ease to difficulty. Every boy, loves and wants ease, but every man embraces difficulty. And so, even from the get-go, there's so much synergy behind the year-round curriculum that John has written and what we're hoping to accomplish in Alaska. And so, just right off the bat, teaching and reminding boys and really even introducing the language of, hey, difficulty is okay. Like, let's face it head on. Let's do it with other people. It's good for you. Every man needs to make that shift. And we can go into John's curriculum later, but there's 5 big shifts that every man needs to make. And I think it's appropriate that ease to difficulty is the first one. And it's the way that, even showing up to Alaska is hard. So ask the boys to leave the ease at home and embrace difficulty in Alaska.
Yeah.
So
I know a little bit of y'all's backstory, but kind of describe what they're walking into, once they get off the plane in the village, hop on the boat. Usually when I hear private island, I think tropics and, and this is from what I understand. Something negative in this world. But, from what I understand, this is not that,
Well, you take it. It's kind of
Yeah.
yours to some extent.
Yeah, so the area that we're in is Lake Clark National Park. My uncle built one of the first cabins in this area in the 60s, 70s. And so I grew up there, going there every summer since I was a little kid. And we started my wife and I started an adventure tour and fishing lodge there in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, 2010-ish. And then we ended up selling it and moving here to Nashville. But my heart's always been back to Alaska. So we bought this place called the Island Lodge. The Island Lodge was built in 1970s. It's kind of it's in the 70s are back, right? So it's a kind of a modern retro lodge that we renovated. So you jump in, you get to Anchorage. We pick you up, or you'll Uber over to the smaller airport. We work with an air taxi there. They fly you about an hour into Port Allsworth, and then you jump on a boat. We'll meet you there. Jump on a boat, and we go about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the wind, 2 hours sometimes. And very safe boats to the Island Lodge. And so we're remote, so it's completely off grid. We do have generators and solar wind turbines as well. So a lot of the luxuries of modern day life. But right off campus is you're in the wilderness, and you're looking at the most beautiful mountains ever. We do a lot. We're very focused on safety. There's making mistakes in Alaska is just there's just less margin for error. So safety is a big deal for us. I've been a guide since 1999, and I've never lost anybody. Nobody's ever been attacked by a bear. He's been guiding for years and years. So typically anybody that dies in life, there's always occasions for that, but safety's not, as long as you're safe or as long as you listen to us and do what we tell you to, it's not unsafe, but it is intense.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
intense.
And when you say campus, describe that to me. Are you sleeping in tents? Are you what's it?
Yeah, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, so you get off the boat on the beach of camp, and there's a main lodge with a dining facility and kitchen and kind of an owner's cabin, and then most of the participants the participants would be staying in fairly nice cabins. It's like a bunk room with its own bathroom. There's I think 2 bunks, so 4 to a room, and there's a couple different structures on campus. I think we've got, I can't remember how many acres we have there, but there's a shop and there's a
sauna.
Sauna is a big one. A little game room, a couple different structures, and so you're inside. You're in a warm bed with running water, pulling out of a well. So there's some of those creature comforts, but like Peter said, as soon as you kind of step outside, you're quickly calibrated to like where you're actually at, and it can be kind of be jaw dropping.
And we do some camping while we're there, but everybody's all going to come back and get a shower and get warmed up.
So let's go back when we first started talking. You talked about this. The whole point of this experience, is to set the stage, for this impending season in these boys' lives. Talk to me a little bit about that. So what does that mean in the context of this week that these boys and their dads are going to be spending together? What does that mean? Tell me about that a little more.
Yeah, we do put a lot of emphasis on the work that's done at home with dad, but really a lot of this vision, and you can jump in too with this, but it really started around reclaiming some skills that we felt like were being lost. So there's it's almost two or trifold purpose here. Obviously the discipleship of father and son, but kind of reclaiming some of these skills. And so we touched on it earlier, but I think a lot of this started with learning how to back a trailer. Peter's got stories, and I've got stories of people that we know older than us who still don't know how to back a trailer, and it's shameful.
And they're terribly insecure about it. You've shown up to the boat ramp, and there's that guy and his wife and his family's watching, and he's jagging, and he's like about to cry.
Yeah.
And poor guy never was taught how to do that. So that's one thing I've worked with my kids on, is just like backing a trailer. And so when we were talking about it, I was like, man, there's just essential kind of fun, manly skills that everybody needs to know. How do you shake a hand and look somebody in the eye? Firm. How do you be able to build a fire? Shooting a gun, be able to be not a tactical crazy, just but like being able to see, like manage a gun, and put a scope on it, be accurate with a gun, how to use a knife, those things, chainsaw running.
And this list can get really long quick, and I think we're trying to protect being overwhelmed with you guys got to do all this and be a master now. I think we try to, and we don't want to create shame for dad either. We want to make this palatable and grasp it.
And those kind of things, the skills aspect of this, really though, they're a backdrop and a context for a spiritual conversation that's ongoing, correct?
Yeah.
So tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah. So we want them to feel comfortable and competent, and then that breeds confidence, right? So if I can back a trailer, I can run a chainsaw, okay, I feel some confidence. It creates a bonding experience with me and dad. And this would be the trifold, and I don't want it to be last by any means, but there are along with those 5 shifts, there are themes and biblical characters that represent these shifts really well. I mean, we do a character study of Joseph, we do a character study of Moses, the Apostle Paul, John the Baptist, kind of unpacking what shifts they went through in their journey. There's conversation around biblical characters who exemplify these pieces of manhood.
And those kind of things. So is that in a classroom? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So obviously we want dads to be doing this with the boys. So we've got the structure we've kind of developed thus far is a communal devo in the morning that touches on kind of the theme of the day or the shift of the day. And then dads, actually, we can get into this a little bit later, but dads actually will have about a 90 to 120 minute dad-only session where they're actually going through a separate curriculum, doing some hard work on getting their story straight, preparing for this journey to take their boys on this journey. Then we've got obviously a bunch of activities in the afternoon and some outings, and then every night we're doing this character study where we've got a facilitator walking through an intentional story of a Bible character who exemplifies this theme.
But a lot of the activities are geared around that shift of the day or that lesson of the day. So it's kind of, no man wants to sit down more than 30 minutes and listen to some other man talk. Let's be clear. But so we prime it in the morning, and then kind of throughout the day we're weaving it through, and at the end we kind of put a cherry on top.
And you bring different people into in terms of the skills aspect of it, the teaching aspect of it. Is it different people contributing to that, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's if we're running a chainsaw, we're one of our board members is in Port Ellsworth, and he's got years
Master
and years.
log builder.
Yeah. I mean, he's got years and years behind a chainsaw. So he'll come up and teach the boys how to operate a chainsaw correctly from a teaching perspective. And I'm careful to say teaching. It's really more of a facilitator. Like Peter said, I mean, nobody wants to get talked at. Like, let's hash this out together. So we've been connected with friends of ours in our networks, pastors, people who've just gone above and beyond or before us in this world raising boys. And they're going to come up and just have conversations with dads, work through a curriculum, hopefully preparing them. And then in the evening, there is a teaching, a lesson. So to answer your question, yeah, we've got some different people who specialize in these certain things, and Peter and I and staff, we're all part of that and would be those people. So
yeah. So what happens after the week? Dad, son go home. You've certainly just through, fire and rain and, freezing your butt off in Lake Clark and all the other things. You've definitely, there's a weld that has happened there, So what is your hope in terms of what happens post the Quarry project?
Yeah. So thankfully, John and his team has kind of created a platform or an online portal, if you will, to get access to this primal path. And so we've been set up as kind of a facilitator to help them do that. So we onboard them to the curriculum. We hand them the curriculum, and the dads have already begun some of their work at camp. But then they go home and they kick off and they start the primal path. It is a 5 days a week, about 15 to 20 minutes. You're doing it with William right now, but about 15 to 20 minutes. There's a man night built in to kind of recap the week and summarize some stuff. And then, like I said, this first year is covering all 5 shifts. And so it's 10 weeks per shift. At the end of a shift, there's a difficulty day to kind of
explain to me what a shift is.
Oh, what a shift is, yeah. So the 5 shifts are every boy loves ease, but every man embraces difficulty. It's from self to others. It's from control to surrender. It's from whole to apart, and from temporary to eternal. And I won't go into in depth on those, but that's what every shift, or every boy needs to make those shifts. And so the way the curriculum is laid out is each shift is 10 weeks. So you do a deep dive into what that practically looks like, making that shift. They use, like we mentioned earlier, using a Bible character to kind of exemplify that. But it's so nice, and you can speak to this, but because a lot of dads are they're worried or intimidated or overwhelmed thinking about, I have a deep desire to raise my boy well, but I don't know how. And I mean, this is the blueprint. I mean, alongside the Bible, but like this is, hey, do this. And you do, even if you fall behind, it's okay. Like just keep going, keep doing this.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
I think what he just said, as a father, I have a 12-year-old son. The desire is there. I'm like, who doesn't want their son to be better than them? Who doesn't want them to go on and lead and be the man they weren't, right? In so many ways. But my gosh, where do you start? You know what I mean? I mean, you got school and sports, and you got all these things to compete with, and where's the time? And you got your own desires and time to contend with, and so because you don't have an outline, kind of a how-to, you just some dads do better than others, but it's like a constant thing to be thinking about. How do I instill these qualities in my son? This, what John's written in Primal Path, and I can attest. I'm about 2.5 months into it. I'm actually like 4 months in because I'm about a month behind. Because I'm a busy guy, I run a business, but I don't beat myself up. And we hit about three days a week, 3.5 maybe on average. And my son absolutely loves the Primal Path. He loves to get. We have I bought him a journal, put his name on it. And so every day he gets his journal out, he writes the thing down, and he writes the Bible verse, and we talk through the whole thing. We do face-to-face. So about maybe 6 to 8 weeks into the program, John Tyson has a video there, and this is so shocking to me. And he says, "Congratulations, Dad. You have now spent more time with your face-to-face time with your son than most dads will do in their whole high school years for that 4-year period." Which is, I mean, it could have been, I don't know how many hours it was, 8 hours at that point, or it was cumulative, 15, 20, 30 minutes a day. And so just the process of doing that and having it being such a high quality curriculum that the kids want to do it as well. And it's just, I mean, my son's like, "Dad, we got to do Primal Path today because we missed this one." And it's like, "Oh yeah, sorry." He keeps us on track. So that to me it really is face-to-face time. It's John, when he talks about character, we'll go through the whole thing and then he'll ask, "Hey, ask your dad about what his experience was being betrayed." Right? Does he have any experience? And so it just brings up this history that I would never have like, "Hey, son, let me tell you how I was betrayed one day."
Yeah.
And man, he loves to hear my stories, and which gives him a historical reference to who our family is, why I am the way I am. I mean, it is hands down, it's so almost stupid proof because you just got to get up and do it, but the rewards it's just unbelievable so far.
To me, it sounds like at the end of the day, like if we're going to encapsulate kind of the value of this, there's two parts to that capsule. One is obviously the spiritual side of it, but the other, and I think equally as important and probably closer to our hearts just from a human perspective is the relational equity that comes out of this between father and son. And I think about, with my boys, like we've had pretty extraordinary lives, like uncommon in terms of the experiences that we've had in the first, 3-4 decades of our lives. We've seen a lot, we've done a lot, we've gotten to do a lot. And how much of that, like my boys are completely unaware of. Like they have no context for my childhood in the bush in Africa. And the many just adventures I've had just in the course of my work and what I do, and same with you. And it sounds to me like this really sets the stage for those kind of conversations, for them to just get to know you, and
history
in a way that would otherwise be very difficult. We're all busy, and to your point, it's difficult to find 5 minutes to have a direct conversation with anybody in our lives, So it sounds to me like, and feels to me like, one of the very important things about this is the relational aspect of this and how it just facilitates something that is very powerful and life-altering, I think, for these boys.
Yeah, for sure. And the dads.
And John builds that into his curriculum. I mean, he's got a whole exercise where, take your son to where you grew up. Show him your first job. Tell him about your first kiss. Just like, prompts this stuff so that your dad's not having to kind of pull it out of left field and doing it unorganically.
Right.
So it's fully comprehensive. I mean, it's an amazing program.
I want to address something we get asked, like, who is this program for? Like, who is it not for? I think it's for every man. Whether you've never been in the woods or you like live in the woods and you're some kind of crazy mountain man. Again, we don't throw you to the wolves. We will cater to any limitations that people have. And you're sleeping in a warm bed every night. You got a hot shower. And we're eating really good food. So don't be intimidated by the location. The location is just like literally the most remote place in America. And that alone by itself does so much work in your son's psyche, in your own psyche. And to be in a place where there's no cell phones and you're surrounded by God's, untouched beauty. National park. We have an inholding in a national park. The park was annexed in 1980, so there was some private land and we were able to acquire one of those. It's just, it is an absolute once in a lifetime experience, but it's not a man's man. You've got to be able to, chop wood and, whittle your spoons to eat at night. Not at all. We've got most of the people that come on this that have signed up this next year, and even the people that came last year, were very much city slickers. They're very successful men that they're very niche in their thing, and wealth advisors or doctors or whatever, and they don't chop their own wood. So don't be intimidated by the location or the activities. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. And I think to that point too, we want to address too, like, this is not the only way to raise a man. We are not claiming to be the one and only way. John's put together an incredible path and program, but we're not the only way. We want to, if you resonate with these activities, right? If you have a desire to learn more and you desire for an adventure, I think, seriously look into us and consider coming on the adventure. by no means do we want to be exclusive and say, unless you have beard or whatever. But,
I mean, beards are preferred, but it's mainly to protect the face from mosquitoes.
And windburn. Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. So I think we want to be clear on that too. Hey, we're not the only way. But if you resonate with us, this is our lane. We love this. We're good at this. We feel comfortable, called, confident in this. And so if you want to come join the journey, we've kind of started paving the way. So
you guys are in this together. You guys have been working together to really get this thing off the ground. But what's your connection? How did you guys meet?
Yeah. So I ran a lodge in Alaska called the General Lodge in Port Ellsworth, very close to the lodge we have now on the island lodge, or on the island. And Connor, I think during college, while you were in college, our dads had met at a Wild at Heart retreat, actually. And so my dad said, my son's in Alaska running a lodge, and Connor's dad was like, my son wants to run a lodge in Alaska, So I remember talking to you on the phone during college, and
I was pestering with the emails every summer. I'm like, please, I'll scrub your toilets. Like I'll just do anything.
So he came up right out of college and was one of my guides. We were running fishing trip and adventure tours, bear viewing, mountain climbing, all that stuff, and did a great job. Like he did such a good job that I was like, man, he could be the future of this whole operation. And we had started Groove Life at that time as a side business. Groove Life is a kind of an outdoor accessory brand that we own now. And it had started to grow pretty rapidly alongside the lodge. And later that year, it eclipsed the lodge, the first year in revenue. And so my wife and I were faced with this decision of how do we serve two masters here? This one is great. This one is our passion. This one's making money. This one's our passion and breaks even, basically. And so we... and then, serendipitously, someone offered us to buy the lodge unsolicited. So we sold the lodge, and I had to make that hard call to Connor and be like, hey, we sold the lodge. And so Connor, I think, went right away and started working I'll let you take it.
Yeah, I think we took a break that summer. So that was like really the only summer I didn't spend in Alaska. And then ended up hooking up with another group just southwest of Port Ellsworth in the Iliamna area, which is kind of the trout mecca of Alaska. And ended up jumping on with an awesome group of guys who ran probably one of the, if not the premier fly fishing, fly out lodge operations. And so started out as a rafting guide for them, ran week-long rafting trips, get dropped off in a plane, camp with the bears, get picked up. I mean, an incredible experience. Did that for a year, jumped on with the lodges, started flying out to different places and was kind of a lodge guide. And then the next couple of years ended up taking on an operating and manager and kind of partner role and operating one of their remote camps.
Yeah, and so I have this. I go up with my kids every summer since we sold our lodge, and I was on the banks of Lake Larkin praying to God and asking him, why do I still love Alaska so much? And then he kind of downloaded this whole vision for this camp. And I'm telling you, the first person I thought about was Connor. And so I got home that year, and I think I waited 6 months because, I didn't have any land. We didn't have a place. My wife, we're just kind of like, what does this mean? We live in Nashville now, running this other company. We have no ties to Alaska outside of family and stuff. And so over time, it just developed, and we found this property that was just unbelievably unique. It's only changed hands a couple times since the 70s. And so, yeah, I sort of, called him, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And he's like, I need to make money. Call me back when you can pay me. No, and I'm running this.
I had actually just hung up the hat of the Alaska gigs. Yeah. And so this was a wild, divinely inspired timing. So.
Yeah, when I bought the lodge, I finally called him. I was like, I'm ready. We're doing it. And he's like, I literally just got off the phone with my other employer. It's not working for my family schedule, and my wife can't come up, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, are you kidding me? Are you doing this? And
I quit without having a plan of what was next. And this literally was the exact same time, day, minute.
It was bizarre.
It was wild.
And so Connor has a background in camp ministry with Kanakuk. Yeah. You can talk about that?
Yeah. So, I grew up at Kanakuk camps. My parents met there. It's a Christian sports camp in Missouri. And during the summers while I was in college, a couple summers, I would go and be a camp counselor, I shouldn't say work my way up, but just found myself in a leadership role training counselors in training. So kind of, they call it the CIT daddy. And I took care of training the next generation of counselors and really felt gifted and trained and was affirmed in that position. However, had thoughts of Alaska and went that direction. So this has kind of blended my two worlds, passions, experiences, heartbeat, all of it. This is it.
And you've run some father-son float trips while you were a guide.
Huge heart for father-son ministries. My dad was my best friend. He was the best man at my wedding. And actually really before, I shouldn't say before, but before John came out with The Primal Path, there was, Robert Lewis had some stuff. There was the men's fraternity, Raising a Modern Day Knight material that was out that Dad took me through. And really, I kind of get choked up and emotional thinking about just the whole story and how the Lord has put together this whole thing, because Dad was really an intentional father before there was even a term for it. And he took me on a backpacking trip up a 14er with a group of his men, his buddies. We came back. He had a blessing ceremony and gave me a shotgun. And a lot of intentionality around this rites of passage, this identity speaking over me. So all of that, Alaska experience, father experience, all that has kind of culminated here. It's pretty wild.
When my wife and I talked about who's going to run this camp, because I can't run it. I mean, I'm running business here. I'm very involved in it, but I'm not an operator of that. There's Connor. Connor, we could find a camp leader that ran a camp in lower 48, but everybody would die.
Yeah.
Because Alaska is constantly trying to kill you, and to keep people alive that are not from Alaska, it's a skill that's learned. The things to look out for, the things that are non-negotiables, like you do not run out of gas on Lake Clark. Like these things. And so, coupled with he loves men's ministry and father-son ministry, you were doing those alongside when you're a guide, volunteering. I think you're doing that, and then it's just like he was the guy. So we called him and
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so maybe just wrapping it up here. Are you partnering with churches across the country? What's the kind of, you have a website, this is on the website. But how does it, are you strategically partnering with churches? So if I'm on the website and, I'm part of a men's group, a small group or whatever, is it something that through my church, I can kind of get a whole bunch of dads together and we can all do it together? How does that work?
Yeah, good question. The answer is yes. I think we're still in the up and coming stages of that. Primal Path has set up kind of a runway to for churches to onboard Primal Path officially in the church. But we're working our personal network right now and working connections with churches. Ideally, yes, you would come with a group from your church, and hopefully. If you're interested in this, you're watching this saying, hey, I want to learn more. I want to show this to my group of guys. I would love to get connected with them. Mm-hmm. I would fly, drive, hitchhike, whatever, to get there in person, do this, do a Q&A, tell stories, share pictures, whatever I need to do to help you feel comfortable in making the move. So reach out. My contact information is on the page, my personal contact information. And that's part of my off-season job is going and connecting with these people, with these catalysts, these dads who are like, hey, I want to be the one to put a group together. I want to come alongside those dads, alleviate the burden of feeling like he's got to do it all, and kind of help get a group to Alaska. So if we're in Middle Tennessee right now, I'm in Northwest Arkansas. So really, there's no regional boundaries. I'd go to Seattle if I needed to, but yeah, kind of focusing on 500 or about a 500-mile radius around kind of Middle Tennessee, Eastern Arkansas.
And the camp happens spring and summer every year, right?
Summer
only. Yeah. So we kick off camp June 12th
this year.
This year we may change it later, but June 12th through about the middle of August, depending on school and whatnot. We run Wednesday to Tuesday. I think with travel and kind of all in, you're looking at about 8 days total. But about 8 to 10 weeks of the summer is our operating season.
Cool. And everything they need to know just in terms of, what to bring, all that kind of stuff, it's all on the website.
Yeah.
You guys have information around that, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's a packing list. We'll have a sample travel itinerary on there. The other thing too is it's not just Peter and I. I am the director of the program, but we've got counselors and we've got a support staff of people up there too, kind of helping run this thing. So that's another thing where we don't want dads to feel like they come up and have to. Of course, they're still dads, but we want dads to be able to come up and invest in this time together, not worry about, is Johnny on the boat? Like he can't be on the boat, or worrying about disciplining Johnny. We've got counselors and some guides to kind of help alleviate some of that too. So I figured I'd mention that. But it's a cool journey. It's been wild.
It's been great. I will say we are a 501c3, so it's a nonprofit. All tuition is basically goes to cover the cost. We'll break even every year. We're actually in a deficit for the first couple of years. We have some larger donors that have helped us get this thing off the ground. So just to keep that in mind, we try to keep the cost at cost. And so it's more than a Smoky Mountain trip, but it's the cheapest Alaskan backcountry trip you'll ever find.
Yeah, well worth it.
Amazing.
Worth it.